Good morning, everyone. It's Barry O'Donovan here from the IXP Manager project and from INEX, and I'm recording a new set of installation videos for IXP Manager version 7, which we're on the cusp of releasing. This video is going to be about installing IXP Manager using the manual installation method. I'm going to install it on a Ubuntu 24.04, but I'm going to work through the commands on the command line, just explain each step. And hopefully if you want to install it on CentOS or Debian or some other version of Linux or even FreeBSD, hopefully as we step through it, you'll be able to convert what I'm doing into whatever's appropriate for the distribution that you're targeting yourself. So let me just orientate ourselves here a little bit. So this is the IXP Manager website, and what we're going to be doing is installing using the manual method, as I said, and on the install tab, we've got two installation videos, the automated script and manual installation. I'm going to be doing the manual installation now. Earlier this morning, I recorded a new automated installation video. That's not on the webpage yet. It's currently going through YouTube's, encoding process. And when that's live, you're going to see here the equivalent for V7. What you need to do is watch that first, where up to the point where I complete the installation of a Ubuntu 24.04 virtual machine from an ISO, and I talk through decisions about CPU, about memory, about partitioning the hard drive. So the kind of production decisions that you're going to need to make when you're building a virtual machine for IXP Manager. So if you watch that video up to the point where I say now you can switch to the manual video before you actually watch this, and that will get you to the beginnings of a bare bones installation. But again, just to reiterate, the commentary that's important is how I discuss some choices that you might make around the kind of configuration in terms of disk space, memory, and stuff that you might want. And at that point, what I did was I created this IXP manual demo. So I'm going to start that VM now. And that's going to get us to a starting point. Just while that boots up, let me just pull this in here. So I'm going to log in. So it's a bare bones 24.04 install, and it's running on an IP address of .77. Okay, let me switch to my command line here. This is from the previous video, so just start fresh on two blank screens, and I'm going to SSH into 192.168.140.77. So that's logging in now to my bare bones. There's nothing here. It's a brand new system, untouched. So I'm going to go in as root. So here I am, root on this brand new bare bones installation. As I say, watch the other video for how we set this up. So for the manual installation, I'm going to go to IXP Manager's documentation. Under installation, I've got manual installation. I will update these links once this video is published, and then we're going to step through this. Now, I haven't done this yet. This page was written using the instructions from the automated installer, so we're going to step through them. If we hit any problems, we're just going to solve them in real time because it's more realistic and it's more true to what happens in a production environment. In terms of requirements, Linux BSD host, no problem with either. So whatever your preferred platform is, it should work fine. You must use MySQL 8. We don't support Postgres or MariaDB or any other databases. It has to be MySQL 8. Any web browser that you like. We're going to be using Apache here, but no problem with Nginx or anything else. You have to run PHP 8.4. Okay, so it won't run on any earlier versions. So that's all just verbose stuff. Okay, so now we're going to get to the actual installation. So we're going to start with updating the bare bones system. So I'm going to do an apt update. I just want to make sure that my system is up to date before I even start. And then I'm going to upgrade. So there's only two packages. That's because, as you saw when I catted the LSB release, just to show you again, It's 2404 and it's the 0.3 release. That was released very recently. So there's only those two updates that have come out since. So it's brand new and up to date. So I installed these. These are just sort of more for my own convenience. Let me just see what I installed there again. Yeah, so there's nothing major in there that we need, but less obviously is something that we're going to use quite a lot. NetTools is something that we might use a lot. My preferred browser is called Joe. So sorry, apt install. I'm going to install that straight away so it doesn't catch me out. The other thing with Joe is every time you edit a file with Joe, it creates a local backup, like a little tilde extension. So I'm just going to turn that off. So that's Joe editing itself. Okay. Yeah, we need Andre's super PPA. Let me just do a quick Google search. Ubuntu PHP PPA. So this is Andre Suri's PPA. Andre's been maintaining this for years. And what it means is that you can install any version of PHP on any version of any recent version of Ubuntu. Because typically the PHP that comes installed with Ubuntu is fairly stale, and especially an LTS version of Ubuntu that lasts 4 years doesn't keep up with PHP's own release cycle. So Andre's PPA is super for that. The PHP that comes with Ubuntu 2404 by default is PHP 8.3, but 8.4 has already been released. And if we look at PHP's release cycle, you can see 8.3 is going to go until December 2027, but 8.4 is going to go until December 2028. So, it's closer to the LTS version already with that. The other thing is, for develop rapidly, we like to stick with the latest versions here because PHP is maturing quite rapidly and introducing much more in line with best programming practices, especially around object-oriented programming as it grows. So we're going to go straight to PHP 8.4. The other reason we can't actually use the 8.3 that comes with Ubuntu 24.04 anyway, because we rely heavily on a package called PHPDS, which is data structures, for IRRDB. Without using that, with PHPDS, we can do IRRDB updates in, let's say, 30 seconds. Without it, it can take upwards of 30 minutes. So that's a critical element for us. And the default version in PHP 8.3 that comes with Ubuntu is actually broken. Strangely, but it is. So we're going to install this repository. Okay, nice and easily done. And now we're going to install the LAMP stack. So I'm going to just let this run here and then we're going to come back and have a look at it. So I'm just going to do the install here. Okay, so it's not asking me to confirm because I've got a -y in there to say yes. So I'm installing Apache, as I say, that's going to be our web server. I'm installing all of the PHP 8.4 packages that we're going to need, and some Perl stuff. So we still use a little bit of Perl with IXP Manager, and if you're going to be running some elements of it, we're going to install those here as well, just so you're up and running from the beginning. So I need to update the language here. That doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, as Ubuntu 24 comes with PHP 8.3 installed, we need Andre Suri's excellent PPA because we're using PHP version 8.4. So I'm going to continue on with that. I have a very good internet connection here, and my laptop is quite fast, so this kind of flies through, which is great for us. So the next stage is going to be about getting the IXP Manager source code. Okay, we'll have a look at that now in a second. And just again to confirm from our last video on the automated installer, we have our /serve or /var all separated up there. MySQL should be installed. It is excellent. MySQL by default doesn't come with a password these days on Ubuntu when you're the root user. That's why it didn't ask me for a password. The automated installer actually sets one just for belt and braces, but we're not going to do that here. That's really left to you. Now is Git installed? It is good. So cd/serve. Okay, so I'm going to set this variable. This is where we want to install IXP Manager. So serve/IXP Manager. So we're going to cd in there, which we're already at it. Now I'm going to clone the IXP Manager repository into the IXP Manager directory. Okay, so if I do an ls there, I can see IXP Manager, cd into it, and there's all the files. So I've done cd into it, and now I'm going to check out release v7. If I do a git branch, you'll see now it is v7. Perfect. And then I'm going to change the ownership of two directories recursively to the web user, because the web user needs to be able to write to them. Now, so we've now installed IXP Manager source code, but there's a huge amount of third-party libraries that we need. I've actually pasted some code here which I shouldn't have, because it very much relies on a specific version of Composer. So I'm just going to make a note here to fix the Composer reference. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Composer website, and I'm going to download. So I'm going to run these commands. Now, I've been doing this for years, and I'm quite happy that I can trust this. Obviously, if you're going to run commands that you're copying and pasting from a website, you should be happy that you can trust them too. So what this does in the end is it installs this composer.far. Far is a PHP archive, so it's a package. It's a packaged application in PHP, and I can run that. It's asking me, I'm running a super user. Am I happy? Yeah, I'm happy with that. And you can also do things like self-update, which is very useful. Okay, so it says I'm already using the latest version. Again, with Ubuntu, it'll install a version of Composer that might not necessarily stay in date. So I like to just use the locally downloaded one within the directory itself. So back to my installation instructions. So now it's telling me I can run php composer.far to install all of the dependencies. I do not want any development dependencies, and I would prefer distributions, which means don't include any excess data like documentation and stuff within it. What this will do is if I do an ls, you'll see there's no vendor directory here. Okay, so php composer install. Yes, I'm going to continue with super user. So this is running array here. Let's have a look. So here now is a vendor directory, and if I list that, they're all the third-party dependencies for PHP that I've downloaded. And I just want to show you, I can blow that away, no problem whatsoever. Just get rid of it, and I can do an install again fresh. Okay, so if you ever end up messing in that directory, you can just remove it, and you can blow it away fresh. Okay, now I'm going to need to check. I'm going to take a screenshot there just to figure out what's going on with that, and I'll fix that offline. But as I say, I've now installed all my dependencies. Sorry, I should also show you php-v. I am running php 8.4 just in case that wasn't obvious. Now IXP Manager ships with a .env.example file, right? So that's the bare bones basic example. And what we want to do with that is we want to copy it. And then if I actually take a look at it, first of all, .env, you'll see there's no application key. And that is a key that's used to encrypt cookies, to do some database encryption. I need to generate a key. So that key is different for every installation. And now you can see that key is set. So what I want to do then is, now that I've got that in place, editing that file is a later step. The next step that it looks for me to do is set up the database, okay? So use whatever means you like to create a database and user for IXP Manager, for example. So I'm going to do a mysql-u root. So I'm logged in as the root user. I'm going to create an IXP Manager database, just as it tells me to do here. I'm going to create a user identified by some password. Now I have a little script that I like to use called make password. So I'm just going to grab that password here. Just a randomly generated password. I'm going to give it super on all databases, and I'm going to give it full permissions on all of IXP Manager. I'm going to flush those privileges. Okay, so show databases. There's IXP Manager. Use IXP Manager. There should be no tables here yet. No, so I'm going to get out of MySQL now. And now I need to edit the .env file to set the database options. So joe.env. If I go down here a little bit, here is my database connection details. So what did I end up using? I ended up using IXP Manager for the database and for the user, and for my password, I used this here. Copy and paste that. And now create the database schema. So there's a migration script that we run. Oh, no, that's the password I'm pasting. So let me copy this guy, paste that in. Are you sure you want to run this command? Yes. So there's all of the migrations running. Now it doesn't look like a lot for a project that's about 20 years old, but that's because we flattened the database at the end of version 5. So you can see that's a big one there that creates a ton of tables right in there in that one. The rest then are just incremental changes since then. If you developed your own scripts that use deprecated views, you can create them using this script. Most people won't need to do that. I mean, it's a no-op. You can just run it. It just creates 3 view tables. But there's a couple of IXPs that relied on those views that we haven't used ourselves in years. So now we get down to the configuration. So it wants us to edit IXP Manager.env, review and set, change all parameters. Hopefully this is mostly well documented. And for IXP Manager, there's also UI for this, but you will have to do the initial ones yourself. So I'm going to have a look at that now. So up to the top, our app debug is set to false. Do you know when you're doing initial installation, you might want to set this to true so you get error messages on screen. But in production, you've got to set that to false. All right, it would be a very bad idea to have it not set in production. So the app URL, this would be your host name. I'm just running this on an IP address at the moment, so I'm just going to change this to 140.77. HTTPS only cookies. This was something that came as a issue on GitHub to ask us to document. It's set to false by default, and that's kind of based on the principle of least surprise, and also because Laravel encrypts all cookies anyway. So even if they were sent over HTTP, they're still encrypted. That's what that app key is for. If you are serving IXP Manager on a web server over 443 HTTPS on a public IP, you should just set that to true. And that's just belt and braces, won't let cookies be transmitted unless it's SSL connected. At INX, we have an SSL concentrator with Nginx and Varnish, so our IXP Manager actually just is on port 80 internally, and then the concentrator does all the encryption at the edge. So that wouldn't even work for us. Your time zone, yeah. So pop up to this URL. And for me, I would go to Europe and I would find Europe/Dublin, and this would be the time zone that I would set. I'm just going to scroll down here a bit and to start and going back up here. So we have a log channel set to daily. All right. So what that means is that you should get a daily log for, I think, 28 days, and then it's going to start rotating. But you can change that to other options. You can have a look at this. Log level is debugged. That's fine. This is our database settings. We've already done those. We've done our migration. You can read here about mail servers and mail settings. I really just want to get to the identity section here. So in my automated installation script, we created a Cork Internet Exchange. So that was Kix IXP Manager. And my legal name was Cork Internet Exchange. Now these are actually hard-coded, Cork and Ireland, just as my birthplace. They're fallbacks really. Once you start adding facilities or data centers, that's what really sets locations. The org name is just set to whatever the legal name is set to here, or else you can change it. Identity name is set to the legal name as well. Then we've got an email address for how we should be contacted. Then that email address is used as a test email. A watermark for our graphs is just sent to Kix IXP Manager. We have a support email that inherits that with a phone number, support hours 8x5, support email, IXP Manager alerts. So all of these settings, I'm not going to change any of these. You just change these to what you need them. Your corporate URL. If you want to change the logo on the landing page, you can put in a new URL here. And that's all of the identity settings. They're the only ones we need to change now. I'm going to scroll down fairly fast just to see if there's anything else we need to do. But most everything else can be done after the install through the settings UI. So these are features that you can turn on or off. So I'm going to keep going down here. Graphing is something that's documented separately as a next step. So you can come back to that. The JSON export schema has some configuration. You can do some skinning if you need to. You can do some caching. So the cache driver here is set to array by default, which means array means no caching, essentially. I can change that to memcache. Let me just see if I've got the package -l grep memcache PHP 8.4. So that is installed. Let me do a config cache and see what my options are. So in here, it is telling me that I have, so it's memcache D is what I should be using, not memcache. Okay, is memcache installed? It is, so it was installed by my apt-get install and it's just running on the local machine. So that's fine. There's nothing else to be done there. That means now we're going to start using memcache straight away. Session lifetimes, PeeringDB OAuth, so PeeringDB authentication, some utility paths, BGP Q3. Let me just check if that's installed. BGP Q3 it is, and which user bin. So it looks like our default there is fine for that. That's critical for sorry, there it is. Where is that gone? Sorry, there. That's critical for all of your IRODB databases to fill up. And then PeeringDB OAuth, and then some other stuff. So again, none of that's critical now. The main thing we had to do there was all of the identity stuff before we moved on. So back to the configuration, install initial database objects. So using the settings you edited in .env, we'll create some database objects. So first create a password for the initial admin user. The following will create a secure random password and set a bash environment variable so that it can be used by the setup wizard. So let's just run these little bits here now first. The .env is interesting. If you actually look again at .env, the way these settings are, just back up to identity. So take this one for example. That's just a standard bash or SH or TCSH or whatever, as is this. As long as this is defined before you try to use it, and it is up here, it's fine. So you can actually just source the .env file into your bash environment. And in some scripts, we would do that, and then we would use the variables to access MySQL in the script, for example. So here we created a random password. This is actually how my make password script works. It's just an alias for that. So let's see what this tells me. So this is the random password it's created for me. I can change that again. Look, if I just run this again. So here's my admin random password now. And I'm going to export that into Bash's environment. Okay, and that means I can use this brand new wizard that was contributed in the pull request to set up my IXP Manager. So let's see. My short name is going to be Kix. My admin name. So let me move my head out of the way here for a second. My admin name is going to be Joe. Oops, sorry. It's going to be Joe Blogs. My admin username. So whatever your preferred username is J Blogs. My admin email. It's going to be joe@example.com. Sorry, apologies. And my ASN. So the ASN is the management ASN of your internet exchange. So it's not root servers, but what you might use for your own management infrastructure, your web servers, your mail servers. If you have a /24 or more, and you're peering with upstreams with that, what you might use for your root collector. So if you don't have an ASN for your root collector, just get any 32-bit ASN, and then you can use that here. Okay, so we're going to run that. So this is our new IXP Manager setup wizard. The following options are taken directly from the .m file, right? So it's taken this information from the .m file. So do I want to continue? Yes, I'm happy with that. And now it's saying, it's asking, is this information correct? And do you want to continue to create the database objects? So it's just asking if we're happy with all of this. It's not showing us the password. If I want it, in fact, what I will do is I'm going to Control-C out. I'm going to just say, no, I'm not happy. Let's get out of here. So, and I'm going to run it again. And this time I'm going to say echo password. So I'm happy with the .m stuff. And now here's the admin password just as confirmation. And I'm happy with that. So I am, yes, going to set up those initial database objects. Now what I need to do is, I'm already here, so I'm not going to run that, but I need to just run some seeders just to create some database information. All right, so they're all ran. File permissions, again, as I said, the web server needs write access to some directories. I'm just going to run those. Now I need to set up Apache. Okay, so let's go to etc. Apache sites enabled. Now I'm not going to do SSL here. So I'm just going to edit the default site. As I scroll down here, let's see, can I cut and paste this in? It's asking for a virtual host. Okay, I'm going to go up here and change my document root to /serve/IXP Manager. Now this is key. We never serve that directory. We serve a subdirectory called public. So we never ever expose the serve IXP Manager directory. Only the subdirectory called public. And then for that, I need to change this IXP root here, /serve/IXP Manager, and it essentially rewrites everything into PHP's index file. So save that. Does it work? Syntax error, line 35. Let's see, KL35, rewrite engine on. Okay, so I need to run this. Let's do that. How am I looking now? So could not reliably determine it. The server's fully qualified name. That's fine. That's something that can be fixed differently. Search actually restart, just make sure it's up and running. And now this says, congratulations, your IXP Manager should be accessible via your server's IP address. Let's just remind ourselves what this is. Okay, so let's see, IP address. This is allegedly our IP address. Take that, hop onto a new tab, paste that in. Excellent. There's my Kix IXP Manager. Now I know it says version 6.4.1 here. That's because I haven't stamped version 7 yet. That's the last thing I do before I actually do the official release. So when you do this, it'll actually say v7.0.0 or whatever version you're installing. I'm just going to move my head down here a little bit. So I'm going to log in. My user, I think, if I remember correctly, it was jblogs. And my password, well, I'm going to put in random password just to show you that it's not just going to let me in. Okay, invalid password. Put in the password that I have set. Perfect. One thing we're doing in version 7 is we're enforcing 2FA. So that's no longer optional. So I'm just grabbing my phone now just to scan that QR code. Add new, scan QR code. My password should still be in the paste buffer, so paste that in first. And then 540163. Brilliant. 2FA successfully enabled, and I have now fully installed IXP Manager. So let me just go back to the documentation. Sorry, here we go. So congratulations. It should be accessible via your server's IP address. It is. If you plan to use this in production, you should secure your server with an IP tables firewall or a firewall in front of it. Okay. Install an SSL certificate and redirect HTTP or access to HTTPS. Do that with Let's Encrypt and Certbot. Okay, and that automatically does the redirection as well. Complete the installation of many features of IXP Manager, such as root server generation, member stats, and peer graphs. So that is everything you can see. What next? See our post install next steps document here. I'm just going to click on that in a new tab. So here we go, post install next steps. This will talk you through setting up IXP Manager fully. So creating your infrastructures, facilities, which are points of presence or data centers, adding your racks or cabinets, adding switches, adding VLANs, adding IP addresses, ensure email is configured correctly, and then your feature checklist. So setting up graphing, configuring routers, AS112, looking glass, cron jobs, cross connect, patch panel management, automating your PTO or ARPA records, setting up your IXF export, MAC address discovery if you need to, although you should be using static MAC addresses really at this stage, Nagios monitoring, peering manager, peering matrix, logging in using PeeringDB OAuth, skinning if you need to, support details page, static content, and so on. Okay, so all of those are your next steps after this. And also, please tell us. So I need to fix this link, but if we go to this URL, so here's our world map of exchanges that are using IXP Manager, and we'd love you to add your IXP by just filling in some details here. You only need these bits. The following is optional. Okay. What we do kind of need to see your IXP Manager is available on the internet, just sort of evidence that you are actually using it in production. And that is essentially it, folks. Beyond that, it's all of those next steps. So that's the manual installation method. Again, hopefully you can translate those instructions to whatever operating system you're trying to deploy on. Just remember that MySQL 8 and PHP 8.4 are the key requirements. And then in terms of operating system after that and web server, that's entirely at your discretion. So I hope that was useful. I hope it gets you up and running. If you have any questions, just remember, any questions, let me just go to it on our website. Under support, we do support out in the open through our mailing lists. So you can get the user's mailing list, and then please just look at the best way to ask for help, just so that you frame the question correctly. And if you find any bugs in IXP Manager, please go to GitHub, inex/IXP Manager, and open a new issue. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful, as I say, and best of luck, and please do let us know how you get on. Thanks very much.